Have you ever had this experience? You just wanted to relax for a bit, but ended up spending hours on your phone? Every time you tell yourself, just one more scroll, and I'll stop, but you can't control it. This isn't your fault. Today's video will reveal the truth behind phone addiction and show you how to break free from it and regain control over your life. To overcome phone addiction, we first need to understand why we become addicted. This brings us to the topic of dopamine. If you've read articles about dopamine before, you might know that dopamine isn't the pleasure hormone, but rather the desire hormone. Dopamine doesn't make us feel happy. Instead, it makes us crave a reward, something we think will bring us happiness. Once dopamine is released, you start craving that reward, but that's not entirely accurate. More precisely, dopamine is a substance that directs attention. It tells you where your attention should be focused. In other words, wherever dopamine points, your attention and energy will follow. So, when we crave our phones, what exactly are we craving? The answer is novelty. From an evolutionary perspective, it's not surprising that people crave new things. The more we know about the world, the higher our chances of survival. Our brains contain many dopamine-producing cells that only respond to new stimuli. For example, when we see something familiar, like a neighborhood street, these cells remain silent. But when we encounter something new or exciting, they become activated. The existence of these cells that crave new environments and information shows that the brain highly values novelty. Therefore, as long as we're faced with something new, the brain releases dopamine, forcibly directing our attention to it. You might be wondering, most of the time, we don't actually find anything particularly exciting or thrilling on our phones, so why do we keep scrolling? This leads us to an important dopamine rule. Anticipation of a reward is more exciting than the reward itself, especially when we don't know when the reward will come. This anticipation is what most strongly activates our brain's reward system. Psychologists call this the intermittent reinforcement effect. It describes a phenomenon where, when rewards appear in an unpredictable manner, people usually exhibit stronger behavior motivation and higher behavior frequency, even maintaining this behavior pattern without obvious external rewards. Intermittent reinforcement was discovered by the famous psychologist B.F. Skinner. He conducted an experiment where he placed a pigeon in a box and set up a device that dispensed a food pellet each time the pigeon pecked a button. In some trials, the pigeon only needed to peck once, while in others, it might need to peck 10 times. The results were not surprising. Regardless of how many times the pigeon needed to peck to get food, it kept pecking the button. Then, Skinner tried a different approach. He redesigned the experiment, changing the number of pecks required to release a food pellet to a random number. Now the pigeon didn't know when it would get food, making each reward a surprise. The pigeon became excited and pecked the button even faster. Something motivated it to work harder. Even when there was no reward for a long time, the pigeon kept pecking the button. Later, psychologists conducted similar experiments, and whether the subjects were mice, monkeys, or humans, similar phenomena were observed. Compared to certain rewards, and certain rewards lead to more dopamine release. In other words, certain rewards are more motivating and more likely to cause addiction. If you observe closely, you'll find that the most motivating and addictive things in life often involve uncertain rewards. A typical example is gambling. Gambling is addictive because you always think you might win the next round, and it's this possibility that makes it irresistible. Similarly, if you get praised every time you do good work, that praise might quickly lose its motivational effect. But if you're praised occasionally, and you can't predict what you did to deserve it, you'll be more motivated and work harder. Understanding these two dopamine triggers novelty and uncertain rewards makes it easier to see why our phones are so addictive. They provide a constant stream of new stimuli, but more importantly, they offer uncertain rewards. Unpredictable rewards have an enormous appeal to the brain. It's almost a primal response that we can't resist. Anything that can exploit this uncertain rewards mechanism will immediately captivate us, making us do things we logically don't want to do. This explains why, even though not every time you check your phone there is an update, and not every time you scroll there is interesting content, you still can't help but keep picking up your phone. It's because of the uncertainty. Every time you feel bored, you naturally pick up your phone to see if there's anything new. Even if you don't find anything particularly interesting, the dopamine release doesn't decrease. In fact, it increases because you always think that the next moment might bring something exciting. Driven by dopamine, after checking one social app and finding nothing interesting, you immediately open another. After watching a video that wasn't very enriching, you can't help but open the next one. You keep scrolling, and before you know it, hours have passed. Next, let's look at phone addiction from a commercial perspective. You'll find that behind this addiction behavior lies enormous business interests. Every minute you spend on your phone is turned into money. Of course, this money doesn't go to you but to the profits of big companies. So, the saying time is money is accurate, but it's your time being turned into someone else's money. This is the so-called attention economy. It describes a business model where companies make money by capturing consumers' attention and then packaging and selling it to advertisers. The origin of this economic model can actually be traced back to 1830. At that time, newspaper publisher Benjamin Day launched the New York Sun. Before that, publishers viewed readers as their customers, and their goal was to provide content that people were willing to pay for. Day's innovation was realizing that readers could actually be his product, with advertisers being his real customers. He then focused on selling more reader attention to advertisers. To do this, he reduced the price of the Sun to 1 cent and introduced more popular reports. This business model quickly caught on and sparked the 19th century newspaper wars. Later, in the 20th century, the broadcasting and television industries also adopted this approach, using emerging mass media technology to attract unprecedented large-scale audiences, reaching new heights. With the advent of the internet in the late 1990s, people began to study how to apply this model to the online world. However, the initial attempts were not very successful. In the early 21st century, when Google went public, its market value was only $23 billion. At the time, the most valuable internet company was eBay, which made money from commissions and had a market value about twice that of Google. Facebook was already founded but was still only open to college students. A decade later, everything had changed. Google and Facebook became some of the most valuable companies in the US, with market values surpassing ExxonMobil, the world's largest oil company. This means that capturing user attention, the key resource for Google and Facebook, had become more profitable than extracting oil. The key to this enormous shift was the advent of smartphones. Smartphones transformed the attention economy from a previously profitable but relatively niche status into one of the most powerful forces in our economy. Before that, traditional tools like newspapers, magazines, TV shows, and billboards never fully captured everyone's attention. Smartphones helped tech giants conquer these remaining, undisturbed attention fortresses, creating enormous new wealth in the process. Today, the competition for public attention has reached a fever pitch, with all platforms fiercely competing for limited attention, constantly escalating the ways they produce stimuli and temptations. Technological advancements have made personalized recommendation systems more and more perfect, with big data and AI even knowing your preferences and addictions better than you do, making tech manipulation effortless. After you watch a short video, You don't have to do anything. The system will automatically suggest a similar video, trying to prolong your visual pleasure. The more you watch, the better the system understands your preferences, and the more accurate its recommendations become. By now, you probably understand better why you feel the urge to check your phone every few minutes, why once you start watching short videos, you can't stop scrolling. This compulsive behavior is no accident. It's a carefully designed trap. Behind one person's addiction are the efforts of hundreds of people working to capture as much of your attention as possible, making you stay longer. This is a key strategy in the digital attention economy. As Cal Newport states in Digital Minimalism, people aren't addicted to digital devices because they're lazy, but because billions of dollars have been invested in making them have to be this way. It may seem like we inadvertently fell into this digital life, but we were actually pushed into it by digital device companies and attention economy businesses who found they could make a lot of money in a culture dominated by new tools and apps. Once you understand the addiction principles and the attention economy trap discussed earlier, you'll realize that regaining control over your time and attention is no easy task. This is because the ones competing for our attention are wealthy and powerful tech companies, driven by enormous profits and highly skilled at leveraging dopamine's properties to win this battle. The only way to win this battle is to cut off its control at the root, which means not engaging with it from the start. But the problem is, we can't completely avoid digital content, as there is still valuable content online. So, how can you access valuable content without being controlled by addictive content, losing your autonomy over your time and attention, and wasting a lot of time? In my view, the best method is the digital minimalism advocated by Cal Newport. Simply put, it means spending time only on online activities that truly align with your values and happily ignoring everything else. For digital minimalists, the ideal digital life is one where carefully chosen tools provide significant, clear benefits. They are particularly wary of low-value activities because these can consume their time and attention, ultimately offering little in return. This sounds great, but how do you actually achieve it? Here are 3 key steps. 1. Undertake a 30-day dopamine detox. Pause all the apps or platforms you love to scroll through and can't stop using. If you want to break an addictive habit, a period of abstinence is the only way. According to Anna Lemke, a psychiatrist at Stanford University School of Medicine and author of Dopamine Nation, 30 days is the typical time your brain needs to recover from an addicted state. This is undoubtedly a painful thing to do. Just thinking about it is tough. But if you look at it from a long-term perspective, you'll realize it's a choice between short-term pain and long-term gain. Would you rather endure a brief period of discomfort? The real pain only lasts the first week or two and gain a more fulfilling, autonomous life, or enjoy short-lived pleasure which isn't all that pleasurable and continue being tormented by addiction? 2. During these 30 days, actively seek and explore high-quality leisure activities. A major reason people become addicted to their phones is that they don't know what else to do. They rely on their phones to fill the gaps between work, family responsibilities, and sleep through mindless scrolling and tapping. Once you have a clear idea of how to use your time, it becomes much easier to resist the lure of your phone. When the voids in your life are filled, and you find satisfaction in high-quality leisure activities, you won't need to rely on your phone to pass the time or fight off boredom. Cal Newport once conducted the 30-day experiment where he paused social media usage. Over 1,600 people signed up to participate. After 30 days, Cal received a lot of feedback. Most people found it hard at first. However, he found that those who successfully completed the 30 days had one thing in common: they had reshaped their free time in a positive way. For example, some people tried learning new skills, others rediscovered old hobbies, and some started exercising again. In general, they actively planned how to spend the extra free time they gained from quitting social media. In contrast, those who didn't successfully complete the 30 days hadn't tried to reshape their lives. Their strategy was to rely on willpower to resist using social media. 3. After 30 days, redesign your digital life and clarify your usage principles. After completing the 30-day dopamine detox, the next step is to redesign your digital life. Based on your experience over the past 30 days, reflect on the value that technology and the internet bring to your life. What specific benefits do you want to gain from technology? Which apps, platforms, and tools can help you achieve these values? How will you use them, and when, to maximize their value? It's best to write these down as your personal principles to follow. Without clear principles and determined commitment, you may find yourself falling back into the attention economy trap. Consumption strategy. The concept of slow media comes from the slow food movement, which originated in Rome, Italy in the 1980s. This movement emphasizes a focus on food quality and origins, as well as the enjoyment of slowly savoring each meal, in opposition to the fast food culture. Similarly, slow media emphasizes high standards in the creation, appearance, and content of media, forming a stark contrast with fast-paced, shallow content. To embrace content media with a slow mindset, we first need to be very selective about our content consumption, focusing only on the highest quality sources. Additionally, when consuming this content, it's best to choose a place and time where you can concentrate and immerse yourself in reading, turning content consumption into a high-quality experience. Starting today, try to stop using those apps that keep you addicted, seek out new high-quality leisure activities, and redesign your digital life. Remember, your time and attention are valuable resources. Don't let them be wasted easily. Finally, I wish everyone success in reclaiming their autonomy over their time and attention and achieving a freer, richer mental life. If you enjoyed today's content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your own stories in the comments. See you in the next video.